Or we're going to do a very short snippet in conversation on practical goals versus and creative sparks, friends or foes. I'm Kathleen Wiley, a Jungian psychoanalyst in North Carolina, and I am here with Deborah Henson-Conant, a composer, a mentor, a creative, and we both play the harp, and that's why we call this Jung at Harp. Almost every week we come together to have a conversation about something that's perking in our own life and in the lives of the people that we work with. And we don't come with answers, but we come with questions to explore and see what might emerge in the conversation between us and with you. So if you're viewing live and you're on a platform that allows, please join in the conversation with any chats. We love to hear your thoughts about the topic and what we're saying, whether you like it, disagree with it, or what your own wisdom is. So DHC, do you want to start?
Yeah, I would love to start. And I would just like to say one of the reasons it's so fun to talk to Kathleen is that we're coming both from the standpoint of both being artists and thinkers, and that Kathleen is a Jungian psychoanalyst. So she takes us deep into that. And I'm a musician who thinks about music and a composer, so getting deep into that part. So Thanksgiving just happened last week, and every Thanksgiving I run the gobble 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 race. And this time, I got to mile marker 1, and I thought, well, I pulled out my phone and I stopped and said, here I am at mile marker 1, and I don't know who I was reporting to, but I was like acting like a reporter. Then I got to the first water station, and I pulled out my phone and I was like, here I'm at the water station. And you know what I realized? I just learned something, that the first water station, your first opportunity, sometimes there's nothing there for you. But if you go to the third or fourth, because I discovered that the first water station was full, but if I'd gone to the next one and there's lots of water. So then I continued with my race. I'm not a fast racer, but I do like to run this race every year and kind of check my time out and see how I'm doing. But then I started realizing I was having ideas. And I thought, well, I'll go to that idea at the end. I'll get it. And then I was like, no, stop. You're going to forget that idea. So instead of running the race and trying to have the best race time I could, I stopped every time I had an idea, described the idea, talked about it, and then went back to the race. And by the time I was done, I realized that I had the worst race time I'd ever had, but I had the best time racing that I'd ever had. So, Kathleen, and when I said this to you, you said, aha, that makes me think about practical goals versus creative spark. So what is your thinking on that? And as we go into life and we have something that I want to prove myself to myself every year in this race. And yet, in fact, I'm having all this rich stuff happen during the race that's going to get lost if I don't stop and share it. It's not so much capturing it, it's share it.
Yeah, and in that moment, you valued the capturing of the creative sparks, the ideas that were coming, more than you valued your time on the race. And I think ultimately, and we talk a lot about boiling things down to their essential. And every day there are so many things that pull us in different directions that we can do. And ultimately, hundreds or thousand times a day, we have to decide what's the essential that's most important or valuable to me at this point in time. And in the race, what was important to you was the creative sparks, the ideas, not making sure you had the best time you ever had. So sometimes the creative sparks sidetrack us from a practical goal. And yet, if we're ever you're going to bring those ideas into manifestation, into a form, into what you talk about as liftoff in the strings of passion, you are going to have some practical goals that you then stick with that linear direction. And when other creative sparks come in, you may have to let them keep going in order to focus on that goal.
Yeah, it's interesting because as you're saying that, I'm thinking, okay, I had a goal to run the gobble, gobble, gobble race. And, and I signed up for it and I got there and I had a goal to get to the end of the race. And yet my intention in life, or what's most important to me, is to have a rich life with creative resonance. And and I also know that one of the things I'm sort of struggling with is being more visibly sharing all this rich life that I have. I just feel like it's a secret life. Ever since I was a kid, it was sort of my imaginary life, but sharing it, because I'm learning more and more about how sharing enriches everyone's life. Not because you came up with the greatest idea, but because it unlocks their own ideas, other people's ideas.
Right.
And so those two things weren't at war at all, because the race was actually creating space for
Uh-huh.
all these ideas to bubble. It was simply the idea that you're in a race, you should try to get the best race time that you possibly can. That's what the race is about.
Mm-hmm.
That was where because the race was creating all kinds of stuff. And I just engaged with it differently. And as I'm saying this, I'm just reminded of basketball. Basketball, it was PE in high school. PE, not my favorite class at all. And I was the head of in one team, I was the basketball team, whatever it's called, captain. And we were just terrible, but I wanted to have fun. And so I decided, let's make a different rule. Instead of let's win this basketball game, or maybe it was volleyball, I don't know what it was, but anyway, something with a ball. And I was like, our new goal, our new rule is everyone on the team touches that ball before it goes to the next people.
Oh,
So it just became a different game.
yeah, a different game. Yeah, so part of what I'm hearing you say is
Oh,
that I'll
okay.
be, yeah, there was a part of you that signed up for the gobble gobble race to check your time to see if you're still as
Yeah.
fast or have
Right.
gotten faster or whatever. But the bigger part of you that has as a purpose, a life's purpose of having a rich life of creative resonance everywhere and beginning to share that with other people, that had more power. It had more energy in your psyche than the part of you that was concerned about your time. You were running the race. So that part
Right.
of you still had its due, so to speak, and had
Right.
its place. But you realize that taking those little timeouts to video yourself with the ideas or record the ideas was something that was far more rich than just staying on the trajectory of run, 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 nothing else, run, 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 run. So it gave each part its due, so to speak, and it did mean that there wasn't the one pointed goal of getting the best possible time you could. And so you
Right.
didn't. But that's okay. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the greater pain would have been not capturing the creative
Right.
sparks.
Right.
The
Right. I would have had a
pain
race
of it,
time.
yeah, it was no big deal because it really, in the scheme of your life's purpose, it doesn't really matter. You're running. It's serving the purpose for you of
Right.
your own health, stamina, endurance, etc.
Right. Right. That's right. That's right. Right.
Yeah.
I'm still in that game, but I'm playing it a different way. And
Hmm.
it's reminding me also of the Burnt Food Museum, in which we just got we just were able to open it up again, not the real one, but the virtual one. And the Burnt Food Museum takes cooking into a different realm of enjoyment. It
Hmm.
makes a new game out of it. And I'm just suddenly realizing we kind of get stuck in, this is how you play that game. Running a race, is about going from here to there and getting the best time, and that's what you do. I mean, I know many people were wearing costumes, so they were about, having fun in their costumes running. Um, but you can make it a different game. So we said practical goal. Okay, you said practical goal and creative spark, and I was like, no, it's a fight. It's practical goal versus creative spark. And you were like, well, as a Jungian, I'm going to say and I'm just realizing that, dang it, you're right, because what I'm seeing here is that what I'm seeing is that the practical goal creates a space for the creative spark.
Hmm.
That wouldn't have happened if I hadn't gone to the race.
Right.
And
Right.
so it creates a space for it. But the big shift is that, oh, duh, now I get it. I mean, and this is what creative resonance and the strings of passion, all the class that I'm working
Mhm.
on right now, this is what it's about, is how do we bring creativity into every
Mhm.
single part of our lives so that we become more and more creatively resonant. And I'm just realizing this is it. It's not that we necessarily even do different things, but we do things differently.
Yeah, I talk about it in the embodiment circle. Instead of living from the head and be driven by the shoulds, must, and ought tos, the head begins to serve the heart and the gut, and that we begin to live in an alignment with ourselves. You were describing this to me before we started recording with the coaching session you'd had,
Right.
and your coach encouraging you to drop out of your head and into your heart about possibilities.
Right.
And so practical goals sometimes get very one-sided and all about the head, to the detriment of the heart and gut, the creativity, the instinctive self. And yet, the creative, instinctive self, the gut alone, the instinctive, everything will just stay kind of chaotic and willy nilly. So they have to come together and
Mm.
inform one another. And, Jung says psyche is a multiplicity of opposites, that we're a multiplicity of opposites, and that these opposites have to find a way to coexist harmoniously and peacefully so that they actually help one another. So your goal that started out, I'm going to run the gobble, 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 see what my time is, that goal actually stayed in the whole of you, where your larger purpose of living a rich life and beginning to share more of that was also alongside it. It wasn't like the practical goal of the gobble gobble race with the time pushed the rest of you out. It
Mm.
was contained in the whole of you, where it could be in relationship to the creative impulse. And yeah. And
Well,
Jung says creativity is an impulse. He says it is an instinct.
aha.
He lists five psychological factors that are akin to instincts. And of course, there are more, but the five that he talks about are hunger, sexuality, movement or drive to activity, self reflection, and creativity. So your movement or drive to activity in running the race made a space for self reflection that allowed you to feel the creative flow of your own psychic energies that are going to rise from the collective that we all have.
Wow. I really want to go back and listen to that. And I was really struck by a word you said, harmoniously. And
Mm-hmm.
in that moment, for the first time, I heard that word in a new way. There is no harmony if there is a single note. That's not harmony. Harmony is when there are two things. I mean, that's my understanding. I can sing harmony with myself if I'm in an echo chamber, but in general, harmony is when there are two separate things that are in harmony.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and therefore dissonance is closer to harmony than not having anything else there. I'm just, that's a whole other conversation about these. I want to just Reham is saying, just kind of pulling that out.
Yeah.
It's not about doing different things, but about doing things differently. I'm sure I'm not the first person who said that. I think I've heard that, but I do love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is really and allowing that difference to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, once again, Kathleen, we had to do a really fast one today because we were having such fun talking beforehand. And thank you, Reham, for resharing that. Um, oh, there's all these new things to touch, and I shouldn't touch them on the screen. Um, so what I got today, just like in the race, I feel like, we started off in one place and then got to be to such a richer place. And I
Yeah.
can't wait to go back and listen to even more of this. So thank you, everyone who's been here, who listened with us and gave comments, and who will listen later and send comments to us. They're so beautiful. And Kathleen, I hope to see you again next week when we get
Yes.
to explore something else we weren't expecting to explore in conversation.
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you so
See you
much.
soon.
Okay, bye.